Google just released a new image editing model. And while it's fun to produce pictures of cats in outer space, it's especially good to replace objects in a photo with something else or place them in a different environment. So today I'm going to show you how to turn this into that and how to do this not just for one photo, but for hundreds of them. So let's dive in and get started. So first I want to show you how this model works. This is really just part of Google Gemini, essentially Google's alternative for ChatGPT. There's a model called Flash, which works for text and images, many other things. Be mindful to select the Create Images tool down here. That's what will produce the image that we're looking for. And it's got a banana because the model was called Nano Banana before it was integrated here in Gemini. Okay, so I have this image right here of a wine bottle that I hold in my hand. It's not great. It's taken with my mobile phone, bad lighting, somewhere in my kitchen. There's some reflections of the light. And I tell Gemini to create a minimalist product photography setup, to put it in front of a gradient gray background, and to do the lighting like you would do it in a traditional photo shooting for products. I'm telling it to remove everything else and to fill in details if necessary. And then after a while, it comes back with this picture. And I must say, it's really, really good. I mean, some things, and let's maybe zoom in a little bit, that you see here is there's even some condensation on the picture. Details are mostly preserved, so it filled in the details where my thumb was. It centered the label on the bottle. At the top, it filled in the cap, which was not visible in the original photo. And like I told it, it placed it in front of this sort of dark gradient background. Light comes from the left side, shadow to the right. So this is a really smart and clean product photography. And I could take this image and put it on the website if I was a wine seller selling this Prosecco online. So this was already great. We have this bottle in front of this background, but what if we want to put this on a website for a wine merchant and we want to place it in an environment that's not quite as sterile as this product photo might suggest? And this is really what Gemini is good at, because it can retain consistency in the objects in the photos. So, for example, assuming I want to show how this Prosecco might pair with different kinds of food, I'm telling the model to extract the wine bottle for a product photo and to place it in front of some food items, and I'm telling it how the lighting should be. Again, I'm submitting this and it really just takes a few seconds. That's the other thing that I was really surprised about. This doesn't take minutes to do. I mean, this was maybe 10, 12 seconds. And it takes this photo. And if you compare it, the lighting here is very different, right? This is some window or some reflection of a window on the right side, whereas there was a harsh photography lighting from the left. It has the steak and the cheese and the bowl of pasta, just like I told it to do. I mean, this is really quality-wise absolutely good enough to put on a website, and its fidelity is good enough that it really represents the bottle of Prosecco, and it's not making something up. It's not some arbitrary bottle of Prosecco. So the results are really, really fantastic. So that was already great. But I told you at the beginning of the video that where this process is really effective is if you have to do that for not just one photo, but potentially hundreds of photos at a time. And why is this important? If you're a wine store that comes out with new wines on a weekly basis and you want to do consistent imaging for your website, doing it manually is really not an option, or it's inherently really time consuming. So doing it one by one, you spend a lot of time waiting. It might lead to inconsistent results. The trick is to do it with an automation tool that repeats the same process for not just one image, but hundreds of them. Let me show you how I would use it, and then I can tell you how exactly that works and how to set that up. What I'll do first is, instead of doing one image after the other, I'm going to take 5 images that I took here, and I'm just going to drop them into Google Drive. And what's happening now in the background, it's going to do the same thing that we did in Gemini, but it's going to do it automatically for me without me having to prompt anything. Just to show you what we're dealing with, it's the same type of images, so just different types of wines that I took in different settings, different lightings, and we'll see what it comes up with when it's done. For this, we can go into this generated images folder. I have two subfolders here, one for the product photos. We saw it's already worked on some of them. So this one, it took a nice product photo, looks very, very similar. And one by one, it does this for all 5 photos. I'll fast forward so that we can see all 5 photos generated. All right, maybe 90 seconds later, it's done with all 5. And again, they look very, very similar, very consistent, one after the other. And they're true to the actual wines. I want to show you now how I do those other sort of more elaborate photo shoots. It's the same automation workflow, but it takes one more input. So what I did here is I've listed all the 5 wines that the AI had just produced. I'm interested in what food this wine pairs well with. Now, if this was a real winery, I would hope they know what food this pairs with. So I don't sell any wines, but I'm just going to use AI again to just list a few food items that might pair well with a wine like that. I'll give it the name of the wine, and it comes up with a few food items. By the way, if you're interested how this works, I have a video where I explain how this AI formula in Google Sheets works as well. And now we have to describe what scene we want to put this wine bottle and the food items in. And that's actually pretty creative. It comes up with the setting that we're looking for, some furniture that we're placing, and the items that we put on the table. And again, you don't have to use AI. I can just say, I want this to be a club setting, colorful lighting, for example. I can write whatever I want here. And this is really, I think, where you as a user have to decide, am I going to let AI do something, or do I know better? And do I want to exactly define what scene this wine should be placed in? I just want to keep this consistent and simple enough that each photo looks different. And as soon as I say this row in the spreadsheet is ready for the photo, I'll write yes. And as soon as I write yes, another workflow kicks into gear that will produce those images. And I don't know what's going to happen because I just came up with those descriptions, the scenes, and the food pairings on the fly while I'm demoing this. So let's take a peek what Gemini comes up with in terms of the scene photos. Again, it goes through one by one. It started with the first one, and it puts this bottle in front of some nice food items. This is the chalet that we just saw with some cheese plates. Looks cozy. I kind of would want to be there and have a bottle of wine in front of this nice cheese plate. Let's look at the second one. That's the club that we said. Insanely creative and true to the nature of these wines. That's how the wine looks like. And so you can put it in front of whatever you want it to be, and it looks decent. Let's look at the third one. Very nice on a vineyard with some lamb and some cheese. Another one on a vineyard with a steak and some cheese. And the last one, oh, that's a nice picnic with a Prosecco and a plate of fruit. This looks fantastic. I think those images on a website would work really well. And all it took was 2 prompts. I think the thing I want to stress here is this is a consistent workflow, that all I needed was some input photos. And just to remind ourselves, how did this look? Those were the images, holding something in my hand, right? Covering something up, sometimes not even the entire bottle. Let me just show you how I connect Google Drive, the spreadsheet, the image generation with AI into a workflow that does everything automatically. For this, I'm using a workflow automation tool called N8N. And you can think about that as a process orchestration system that takes data from one system and prepares it for the next one. I'm not going to go into too much detail how this looks like, but essentially the two things that we saw, creating the first image and creating the second image with the nice scenery, those are two separate workflows. Every workflow starts with a trigger. For the first product image with a gray background, the trigger was I drop a file into Google Drive. That's it. For the second image, the trigger was with that existing photo taken, as soon as I write yes in the appropriate row in the Google Sheet, it will take this and create a second image. What I like about those workflow automation tools is you can see visually nicely how those systems work together, how the Google Drive input flows into creating the image with AI, how it's uploaded back into Google Drive, and then a spreadsheet is being filled with information from that photo. The real strength of those systems is that it does those actions in the background without you having to monitor it, to sit there while it does it. So for that first workflow, I could just drop the photos in there, walk away from my computer, come back the next day, and those photos would all be there. That's especially useful if you don't have 1 or 5 photos like we had here in the demo, but potentially hundreds of them. So this does the work while you're away, and you can focus on other tasks while it's completing its work. So that's a wrap. I showed you how to create pretty good looking product photos with the use of Gemini's new image model, but this video is really less about that particular model, but about the fact that if, as a business, you have repeatable workflows, what you really want to do is use AI as one step in the workflow and to systematize your processes. If you like this, give me a like below, subscribe to the channel. I post videos like that every once in a while whenever there's something new in the world of AI and automation. And until then, I'll see you later.